Good evening. President Biden is making his first visit to the southern border as president today after 2 years of Republican criticism that he's soft on border security.
He needs to step up and take swift action, including reimbursing the state of Texas for the money that we spent, but providing more resources for the federal government to do its job. Also, this is for nothing but for show unless it begins to enforce the immigration laws already that exist in the United States of America.
Governor Abbott, thank you very much for coming on. So just a very clear question. Why 2 years ago not say, I'm the governor of Texas. They're messing with Texas. I have a military force I command. It's called the National Guard. We're going to block the border and save the country. Why didn't you do that? Why aren't you doing that now?
As American citizens struggle amidst the onslaught of illegal activity on U.S. soil and thousands suffer under the hand of Mexican drug cartels, the state and federal government are failing to secure our southwest border. With millions of illegal aliens crossing into the U.S. every year and no solution in sight, the question remains, is there a way to stop the invasion at our border, or is our country too far gone? I'm Wade Miller, Marine and Executive Director of Citizens for Renewing America, and this is Episode 5 of Exposed, Border Invasion.
Cartels have expanded to all 50 states, battling for control of the nation, coast to coast.
I'm here to let you know that the invasion is real.
14,000 new migrants per day may soon surge over the southern border.
They're not afraid of the Mexican government. They're not afraid of the U.S. government for sure.
Governor Abbott, we're asking you to step up.
While President Joe Biden and his administration actively ignore immigration laws and allow illegal aliens free access to federal benefits, the number of illegal aliens enter this country is soaring. But Joe Biden isn't the only politician failing to secure our southern border. In Texas, Governor Greg Abbott created Operation Lone Star, a program meant to enhance border security by detecting and interdicting criminal activity between ports of entry, and called for President Biden to fix the border crisis. He also promised to secure the state. However, state assistance in some counties has actually slacked off despite the steady traffic. Dale Smith explains what's happening in his area of South Texas.
The number of brush crews has actually gone down in number. Initially when all this OLS kicked off, there were brush crews, multiple brush crews all over this area. They were having a big impact. We've gone from 3 or 4 brush crews down to just 1 now. And so instead of the state helping or ramping up its efforts, they've actually decreased their efforts, and we have less help than we did when all this started.
Texas Department of Public Safety brush crews respond to activity in an area, track, and then apprehend the trespassers.
How is DPS doing as far as compared to Border Patrol? They were doing the job of Border Patrol. When Border Patrol was actually doing their job and not being Uber drivers, DPS was doing as adequate of a job as Border Patrol was.
Texans are calling for Abbott to do more, to use his constitutionally granted authority to declare the crisis along the southern border an invasion and repel it.
We've been told they're trying to protect us, but it's been 2 years and nothing meaningful has been done. It's all dog and pony show. And Abbott he's declared invasion, but it's just on paper. He hasn't done anything meaningful at all.
According to current U.S. Supreme Court precedent decided in Arizona v. U.S. a decade ago, individual states cannot enforce federal immigration law. To work around the limitations in Arizona v. U.S., some are calling for governors to invoke Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 of the U.S. Constitution, which allows states to declare an invasion and defend themselves from outside threats if the federal government fails to do so. Former Acting Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Ken Cuccinelli, believes this tactic could work.
Not surprisingly, because the states made the federal government, it's worth remembering that, they kept the power to defend themselves, just like we have as individuals under the Second Amendment. You get to defend yourself. That's a constitutional right. So can states. And in the Article 1, Section 10, very, very end of it, paragraph 3, it says that states can't engage in war without congressional permission, except when they're actually invaded. And Texas is, by any measure, being invaded. Your governor has declared it so.
Although Abbott used the term invasion in November 2022 when announcing several new initiatives along the border, he has yet to take any real action related to invoking the clause, instead preferring to continue the status quo of increasing funding and troops without a long-term solution that stops the crossings.
As a constitutional matter, Greg Abbott has declared that a constitutional invasion is occurring in Texas, but he has not started removing people. Now, you note I don't use the word deport, because this is not immigration law. This is now just straight constitutional power of self-defense of a state. But included in that is how do you deal with prisoners, which would be anybody coming in illegally, entering not through a port of entry. Those people can be taken straight back to Mexico and dropped back off. This is not Title 42 public health law. It's not immigration law. It's the reserved right of states to protect themselves against invasions. And unfortunately, Governor Abbott has declined to use that power. He's declared the invasion, but done nothing about it, in my view, except have photo ops.
Those who support this move, including Kinney County Attorney Brent Smith, believe that declaring an invasion will allow states to take matters into their own hands instead of having to rely on the federal government, if they're willing to take the first step.
And what that's going to look like is Texas using their National Guard, their DPS, the sheriffs, all on the border to actually repel them from coming across. And when I say them, I mean everyone, cartels, illegal aliens, which is just a commodity of the cartels, and everything else. But with that, and it's also going to require other states stepping up to help Texas to do that.
In May 2023, President Biden announced that he was sending 1,500 U.S. troops to the southern border in anticipation of Title 42's expiration. Title 42 is a public health order issued at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic that was designed to allow customs enforcement to send illegal aliens from COVID-19 impacted countries, such as Canada and Mexico, back to their country of origin without processing them. As tens of thousands of illegal aliens gathered in Juarez, Mexico, and waited for the May 12th expiration of Title 42, operating under the false belief that the U.S.'s border would be left wide open after the order ended, border towns like El Paso and Brownsville prepared for a flood. El Paso's mayor declared a citywide state of emergency in anticipation of the event. The order prevented illegal aliens from camping along city streets and opened several temporary emergency shelters throughout the city. According to Mayor Oscar Leeser, El Paso doesn't have the resources to maintain thousands of illegal aliens.
I did talk to the federal government the other day. I did talk to the Secretary of Mayorkas' office, and I told them that really we have to change. And it's really important today that we change federal laws. There is no end game to this. This is still going to continue, and every day, and we can't continue as a city and as a country to continue to provide this service without federal government, federal laws change. The federal process right now is broken, and it has not been fixed for many, many years. And at the end of the day, as a community, we cannot continue to do this with the same laws that the federal government is providing us to work with.
While Democrats touted Biden's 1,500 troops as a win for border security, officials reported that the troops would not participate in law enforcement activities. Abbott criticized Biden's decision to send troops to the border, saying that the soldiers would essentially be doing paperwork instead of stopping illegal immigration. However, some have criticized Abbott's Operation Lone Star for similar reasons, and many are still calling on the governor to declare an invasion. Texas's U.S. Representative Chip Roy called out Republican lawmakers who are unwilling to take on the Biden administration and protect citizens.
So there's a very black and white difference between the leadership we had under President Trump securing the border and the complete abject failure and lawlessness under Biden. But there's a big block of idiotic Republicans in the middle of all that who are just sitting, fiddling while their country is burning. And those Republicans, frankly, let's look in the mirror right now in this Congress and decide, are we going to do something about it? Are we going to use the power of the purse to stop giving money to an administration that is not securing the border?
As citizens, elected representatives, and the federal government fail to stop the invasion, as Chip Roy has suggested, Governor Abbott has the opportunity to protect Texas. However, instead of repelling illegal border crossers and preventing them from entering Texas in the first place, Abbott is sending them deeper into the country. In 2022, Abbott started a program that has bused more than 15,000 illegal aliens from Texas border cities to New York City, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and Chicago, cities whose officials endorsed and passed sanctuary city laws, declaring themselves sanctuaries for illegal aliens and promising to protect them from deportation.
Texas is providing charter buses to send these illegal immigrants who have been dropped off by the Biden administration to Washington, D.C. We are sending them to the United States Capitol, where the Biden administration will be able to more immediately address the needs of the people that they are allowing to come across our border. The border does not come cheap. Securing the border would cost Texas nothing if the federal government was doing its job. But because Joe Biden is not securing the border, the state of Texas is having to step up and spend Texas taxpayer money doing the federal government's job.
Mayor Lori Lightfoot sending a letter to Texas Governor Greg Abbott urging him to stop sending migrants here to Chicago.
Yeah, this comes after word that even more people could be sent here from the Lone Star State.
In response, Abbott told Lightfoot that Texas border towns are less equipped to handle an influx of illegal aliens than Chicago. Lightfoot also said she would call on the federal government to withhold all of Texas's FEMA funding if Abbott did not end the stunt. In response, Abbott informed Lightfoot that he would not stop the program until the border was secure and told her to take up the matter with President Biden.
As the mayor of a self-declared sanctuary city, it is ironic to hear you complain about Chicago's struggle to deal with a few thousand illegal immigrants, which is a fraction of the record-high numbers we deal with in Texas on a regular basis. Texas border towns like Eagle Pass, Brownsville, and Laredo, and even bigger cities like El Paso, cannot handle the flood of illegal immigrants rushing across our southern border.
Although Abbott claimed he started the busing program to bring attention to Texas's struggles at the southern border, some criticize the governor for using taxpayer dollars to move illegal aliens farther into the United States, while failing to take action himself. As Abbott sends illegal aliens deeper into the country, counties across Texas are picking up on the invasion declaration strategy. So far, more than 30 Texas counties have declared an invasion along the southern border. These counties have also called on Governor Abbott to step up and repel illegal aliens as they come across the border. Lavaca County's invasion declaration states, "The ongoing immigration crisis on the Texas border is not acceptable and has resulted in a security threat and humanitarian disaster with overwhelming consequences to the residents of Lavaca County and Texans alike." While President Biden and Governor Abbott are slow to take control of the border crisis and offering what some do believe to be empty policies and promises, others, like Representative Chip Roy, are calling for meaningful action.
Will Republicans honor their campaign commitments to secure the border, yes or no? What I am seeing right now from my Republican colleagues does not give me faith that they will stand up in the breach, as did those men who stood on the wall at the Alamo. I am tired of words. Things are going to change in this body. If my Republican colleagues believe that they're going to be moving through relatively meaningless provisions, doing precious damned little for the very people who sent us here to change things, and they think that some of us are just going to go along for the ride, they are sorely mistaken. We will not.
For Roy, his fellow Republicans' lack of action on the border crisis is inexcusable for politicians elected in part for their calls to secure the border.
You know what? Stand up, right? Be a strong man or a strong woman and stand up in defense of the rule of law. That is what is attractive to all people, regardless of the color of their skin. And I'm never going to back down from that.
On the state level, a number of Republican lawmakers have filed legislation to deal with various aspects of the crisis, from human and drug smuggling penalties to additional personnel and funding. However, many citizens are concerned that lawmakers don't fully comprehend the gravity of the situation.
Lawmakers in Austin are so disconnected and uninformed and out of touch. And that's if they give them the benefit of the doubt. Because the alternative is they just don't care. Do something meaningful. Don't just come down and take a tour and be like, oh, wow, this is really interesting, or you guys are going through some rough stuff and try to sympathize with us, that does nothing for us. Do something meaningful. Change some of the laws where it's actually a felony to evade law enforcement by trying to avoid checkpoints and coming across agricultural land. Change the law so there's actually some teeth in trespassing. If you're, instead of just a Class A misdemeanor, if you're over X number of feet inside of a property, make it, if you're more than 1,000 yards inside of a property, it becomes a felony, or just something to add some teeth to protect the people out here, because we have no protection. Other than what we create for ourselves. If I call law enforcement, at best, it's going to be 30. That's if somebody's available, it's going to be 30 minutes before they can get here.
Former State Senator Don Huffines released a plan entitled Operation Clean Sweep, which calls for Texas to declare an invasion and end Operation Lone Star. Huffines had this to say.
Let's put Texas first. Let's secure the border, and the key to securing the border is holding Mexico accountable, because we know the federal government's never going to secure the border. It's up to the great state of Texas. And to do that, we need to make sure we have incentives for Mexico to secure their side of the river. And that's economically. We need to destroy the tourism industry of Mexico. We need to advertise everyone not to go down there. We need to search all the truck traffic that comes in. There's $800 million a day worth of trade. You know, if we use Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution, the governor of Texas can do just about anything he needs to do to repel the invasion, including taxing all the goods that come in from Mexico, taxing remittance back into Mexico, searching airplanes that land in Texas that are coming in and bringing tourists from Mexico. Mexico's being a really bad neighbor, and we need to hold them accountable.
The plan also proposes that the state legislature remove the incentives drawing illegal aliens to Texas. This would include stopping in-state tuition for illegal aliens at Texas universities, ending Medicaid spending on non-citizens who have children in Texas, and placing an 18% tax on all money remittances to nations from which illegal aliens originate. Huffines' plan would also direct Texas military officials and law enforcement to work together and repel the invasion directly at the border, in addition to holding talks with governors of 4 Mexican border states.
You know, we're 2 years in, and that ball's been dropped. You know, the time for immediate and tangible solutions is already passed. We're past that. We're past the time for talking. We're past the time for more town halls. We're past the time for congressmen to come down here and do their photo shoots for social media likes. We are beyond all of that. Our lawmakers should have already been busy making the laws to end this.
Although a few lawmakers have stepped up to the task of pushing to secure our southern border from the cartels, citizens need more than theories and bills. They need action. Brooks County Sheriff Benny Martinez says it's time to wake up.
I think a lot of times we ourselves can convince ourselves otherwise by reasoning. Okay, we, instead of facing the issue, we reason with it. And pretty soon we convince ourselves that it's okay. Because that's what we're doing. We're convincing ourselves that it's okay to get raped. It's okay for people to die. And it's okay for narcotics to get through. And that's wrong. So we need to kind of like snap out of this illusion that we have and see the reality.
Fixing the crisis along Texas's southern border is possible if we take the necessary steps to secure the border and stop the invasion.
The Exposed podcast is a production of Texas Scorecard. Texas Scorecard is the leading news source for government and culture. Go to texasscorecard.com today. This episode was written by Katie Marshall and Sydney Henry, hosted by Wade Miller, and audio engineering, editing, and production by Drew Cook.